You're listening to the Femtrepreneur Show, and this is episode 45. In this episode, we're chatting with Kelsey Baldwin of Paper and Oats, and we're talking all about passive income and digital products. Hey guys, it's Mariah.
And I'm Megan, and we're so excited for you to hear our interview with Kelsey. Kelsey Baldwin started Paper and Oats as an Etsy shop and a freelance design studio back in 2013, and it has since grown into a brand and blog that teaches creatives how to organize, design, and market their digital products so that they can share what they know and look good while they do it. She's a single mom to a crazy 2-year-old and a big fluffy dog, and is also an advocate for women learning to sustain themselves and gain independence through online business. This is a great interview, so let's dig in.
Hey Kelsey, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to have you here on the Fem Show podcast. We've introduced you a little bit to our audience, but I want you to tell us in your own words who you are and what you do and what your online business is all about.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on. This is fun. My name's Kelsey Baldwin, and I run Paper and Oats. And I basically have a blog and business that talks about helping creatives organize, design, and market their digital products so they can share more of what they know and actually look good while they're doing it.
Ooh, I feel like you're especially good at the looking good part. My biggest struggle.
I'm a designer by trade, so that's like my favorite part of it.
I always recognize your stuff when I see it online. I'm sure you guys who are listening do as well. So, okay, let's take it back a little bit in terms of, we know what your business does now, but let's take it back to what you did before you started your business. So I want to hear about what your life was like before you had an online business, and then sort of why you decided to turn to online business, and then how you transitioned to going full time.
Yeah, so I went to school for design, and I started doing freelance like my first year of college, and I went on Craigslist and just took like free gigs, just so I could learn the ropes of like working with clients, and they couldn't be mad at me if it was bad because it was free. So
I like that
it was
approach.
Really good. I feel like I learned so much more doing that than I ever did in college. But
I feel like I've also never heard someone specifically say that that was how they got started, which is really smart.
Yeah. I don't know that I'd recommend it now. Craigslist is so much creepier now, but
It's changed.
Back then it was a little more normal, but still a little bit creepy. So after college, I got a job at a design agency, and I worked there for about 5 years, or kind of at the end of college. I worked through till the end. And then they hired me full time, and so they were great, and I could continue doing freelance on the side too while I worked there. So I kind of was building that up at the same time, having this consistent income from a day job. And then kind of around the time, I guess in college, I had started an Etsy shop, just selling like random stuff, like paintings, like things I had done in school that I wanted to sell. like in art classes, you have to make like 5 copies of the same thing. And so I would just sell the extra copies on Etsy. And so it was kind of just a hobby thing on the side that I would randomly throw stuff up there, and nothing really did that well, and I didn't put that much time into it. But I kind of knew I wanted to grow that eventually, but I didn't know what that would look like. So I just sort of left it there. But while I was at this job, I was married, and then my husband asked for a divorce, and I found out I was pregnant.
Oh my gosh.
And so it was like a huge transition of like, I'm suddenly down to one income, and I have a baby on the way, and I'm working a full-time job, and I don't really want to be working whenever she's born, just because you're trading your paycheck basically for a daycare invoice. So
Yeah.
So I kind of took the whole pregnancy time to build up my freelance as much as I could, build up my Etsy shop. A little bit before that is kind of when I discovered this world of digital products, and I was selling printable planners on Etsy, and they were doing really well, a lot better than I thought they were, or I thought that they would be. So I sold those, kept adding new things to the shop, all through my pregnancy, still working full-time, building up my business. And then I came back to work just at about half-time, and I kind of continued building my business on the side, and they were really great to work with. They knew I was doing that. You know, they had left their old jobs to start this agency, so they understood that like entrepreneurial spirit and encouraged that. So that was really
wow. That's really nice.
Awesome.
Most people have to like hide it.
I know. Yeah.
Wow.
I could just like come to them like, hey, I have this client and they're doing this weird thing, and they could like give me advice on it. So
wow,
that's nice.
Yeah, so I feel really grateful to have had that, and they're still all good friends of mine. So then when my daughter was about 6 months old is when my Etsy income was pretty consistently the same amount as my salary at the job, and so quit the job and had my Etsy shop, and then built up my freelance work and even more. And that was kind of the time I got like on Instagram and kind of discovered this whole other world of people doing the same thing that I didn't even know existed. So I feel like it was kind of around that time that I discovered you, Mariah, and was just like, oh, these are like the exact things I want to be doing.
I think
like,
I had that same experience. Yeah, when I started Femtrepreneur, was me having that same experience, because I started Femtrepreneur thinking that I was like the only girl doing this, and then I was like, wait, no, there's all these other girls. I was just like, where were they hiding? Like, how come I couldn't find you 3 years ago when I started my online business and was struggling and lonely?
Yeah, I needed help.
So then it's like everyone found each other, and now everyone is, now it's great. But at the time it was kind of like this isolated, like, oh, are there other people out there selling digital products like I am? Yeah. And then it was like, oh yeah, they do exist.
It's a weird feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had, I took your First 1K course, and that kind of opened me up to like online courses a little bit. And I had done a lot of work, designing like the back end of online courses for a lot of clients before that. Yeah. So that was a good way to like see kind of all the pieces that go into it, like all the slides, all the promo stuff, the sales page, email marketing. Like I was designing stuff for that, so I could kind of see how it all worked together on the back end, and was like, I think I could make one of these. So took your First 1K course. I actually didn't finish it. I still have like 2 or 3 lessons sitting in my inbox that someday I will go through. But it was such a good like jumping off point of like, getting the basics and like kind of seeing how it all worked, and then just like running with it. And so after that, I was able to, or after I launched my first course about InDesign, I was able to stop taking freelance work and just focus on teaching. So
that's awesome. That's so cool. I didn't realize that was part of the turning point of being able to go full time, which is so exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I like quit my job in February and took your First 1K in May.
That's awesome.
So
that's so cool. So like you had, I mean, what you're talking about too, I appreciate, because you're saying that you were working on building up your income on Etsy and beyond, like throughout your pregnancy, and then 6 months into like your daughter being born and all that stuff. And it's like, it took you more than a year, which I think is normal for most people to transition out of their full-time job. And yet we hear so much about the like, overnight I made $30,000 and I quit my job, and then like not, everything was different. But I really appreciate that it built up for you, and that to me feels really stable and safe. And that's what people are looking for, is like you had to prove to yourself that it was consistent for months and months and months in order to feel comfortable taking that leap.
Yeah. And I'm such a planner, like in general. I could not like, if like even like knowing that my Etsy shop was consistent for like a full year, it was still like nerve-wracking, like officially, leaving my job. Totally. And then also being a single parent, like you don't have another income to fall back on. So I felt like everything was a little bit riskier. So I always think the gradual method is probably safer. Yeah.
I think people don't understand that is like, is that when you're running a business, no matter how successful it is and has been for months and months, it feels to like, and I look at other people and I'm like, oh, well, if you're making X dollars per month, like you could quit your job or whatever. But then I remember how I felt, and it was like, it never felt like it felt like the next month was going to be the month where it all fell apart, or like it was like, oh, if I stop doing this, or if I like rent an apartment and move out of like living in my van, then like that's going to be the month that like no income comes in at all. And it's not, it almost like doesn't feel like it's going to keep going until you've had that consistency for like, I found like 5 years is like to the point where I finally feel like, oh, this is somewhat reliable. I don't have to worry that this is going to like totally stop working tomorrow.
Yeah, even still, I'm like, what's my backup plan if
I know,
suddenly
same.
everything fails? Like,
Same.
what will I do?
I think my backup plan has become like, I'll start another business. Like
Right.
like I'll just do another business. It used to be like, I'll go back to my HR job. But now,
now it's
I feel like I can't even do that.
we would make it work.
That's like my true worst case. Like I'd probably
Yeah.
try several things before that point.
Yeah, definitely. No, I mean, that's really interesting. So what would you say what would be sort of and then I want to ask you about sort of your income streams now and how your courses have evolved and changed since that first launch. But what would you say to someone who is wondering, how do they know if it's the right time to go full time? If they have had some consistent months in their business, like what would be just one piece of advice for someone who feels like they're never going to be ready to leave?
Yeah. I think it took having my Etsy shop for a long time where it was bringing in the same or more than the paychecks I was getting from my day job on a consistent basis. But also that was just a piece of my business. And I also had the freelance and the client work, which was not as, consistent or predictable. So that seemed riskier to me. So I didn't want to base my decision off of that income, because some months, it was more than my salary, but other months it was quite a bit less than my salary. So I didn't want to depend on that, but just I think having multiple streams that can kind of build up to that, whatever that number is that you're trying to meet, to match or exceed your day job, having different, things that can flow into that number, I think is safer.
Literally the perfect transition to my next question. How did you know?
Segue.
Well, and that's something that we always like to ask about, is that we talk a lot about multiple income streams, and we know that successful entrepreneurs don't just have one single product that they sell. Can you break down for us sort of what your income streams look like today? Maybe just rough percentages of what comes from printables, what comes from online courses. Do you still have any clients? What does that breakdown look like?
It's pretty simple breakdown now. About a third of my income is my Etsy shop, and the other 2/3 are my 2 online courses, the InDesign course and the Etsy course. And those are split pretty evenly too. So each of those is probably a third. I don't do any freelance work anymore except for my brother on occasion, because I have to, because I'm related to him.
You haven't put your foot down yet.
No.
No, that's nice. Well, that's super helpful to know how it breaks down. And I think having it in thirds like that, I know a lot of people say that if one of your products or one of your income streams is taking up the majority of them, that can be kind of unsafe, and that can be a little bit unstable, because if something happens to that, then 10% is the other 5 income streams, and that's not really very viable.
Yeah. Kind of this year I've been working on adding, adding another kind of stream, I guess, but still a course type thing. But they're mini classes that are kind of more on specific topics, and they're much shorter and not as involved. But they kind of provide that fourth stream a little bit, hopefully eventually. But they also provide, I think, a middle ground price point for customers, because my Etsy shop, they're $7 to $20 products, and then my courses are a few $100s. So these are more middle range price points, just to kind of have the full spectrum. So
I like that. You're bridging the gap in
the
pricing.
Yeah, there's a big gap there.
That's really smart. So you have these digital products, and then you launch your course. And now I want to get into sort of all the digital products that you have and how you are sort of promoting and creating passive income on Etsy, because that's super interesting to me. Obviously, everyone is fascinated by the idea of passive income. But do you have any advice for people who are in your position before you took your first 1K, when you were trying to figure out how to launch that first bigger, you'd already had these printables, but you wanted to create an online course. What kind of advice would you have for someone who's in that position thinking about launching their first bigger product like that?
Yeah. A big thing that I did too, whenever I was kind of before I started your course, and then whenever I knew I was wanting to eventually do my own, was I started blogging. which I had wanted to be doing, but I hadn't started yet. And so I kind of forced myself to start it. And then I think that was helpful to like see what types of topics my audience was really responding to, and what things, what were the most popular posts, even if I only had a handful of posts, what was getting the most traffic, what could I build around that topic. And then also when I knew I wanted to be teaching something about InDesign, I could blog about that and start building up my email list around that topic and offer freebies and content upgrades that were specifically about InDesign. So, thinking down the road, whenever I do launch the course, I'll have this group of people that I know is interested in InDesign and not just like random people who, knew me or friends of mine or something like that.
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, I think it's interesting that I don't think I realized that you weren't blogging before then. I think I just assumed like for all that time leading up to that, you probably were blogging, but there's so many people in our audience who ask us like, can you still be successful even if you haven't been blogging? Or like, how can I sell a digital product if I don't have an existing blog, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I started blogging like 6 months or so, 5 or 6 months before I launched the course.
That's really good to know. I think that's
it's timely too, because when this episode airs, we're a few weeks away from July, and our theme for July for the podcast and the site is blogging. So we'll be talking about that afterwards.
Yeah.
Perfect.
For sure. Okay, so let's talk about digital products and the idea of passive income, because you've created sort of passive income systems by selling digital products on Etsy, which seems like such a powerful combination, almost like in something I read about a lot is people using the sort of built-in audience of Amazon.com or the built-in like Amazon traffic that's already happening, and how you can tap into a marketplace that already has shoppers just looking for things to buy. So that to me is like kind of an amazing combination that you've mastered. But before we get into the details of that, I really want to ask you, like, what does passive income mean to you? Or what is sort of your idea of like, what is passive income?
Yeah. I think passive income is not trading dollars for hours. And I can't remember if Pat Flynn said that, or I feel like somebody else said that and I just stole it. But
I think that's pretty I've definitely heard other people say it too. It's like gotten lost in translation.
That's like the ultra simplified definition. Just creating something one time that you can sell over and over. And it's not dependent on your time or, having a human being there to do something. And it kind of just sells on its own without much extra work beyond creating it in the first place.
That's awesome. I mean, you're definitely one of the few people I know who has sort of, I think there's a lot of people that want to crack the code on that. And you're one of the few people I know that is definitely doing it in a real way. So that's why I'm so interested to hear all the details. So tell us, like, in more detail, how have you created passive income in your business? Like, what does that look like? Kind of paint like a picture of like the flow chart of how it works.
Yeah. Now I say it's all passive income. I think that's like a misnomer too, of like, I don't do anything all day and I just make money, and that's not true at all. But like all of my Etsy shop is passive income. That's probably the most passive of my income that I have, just because I created most of those kits, 1 or 2 or 3 years ago, and they continue to sell today without much effort. So, and Etsy has a whole system where they deliver it automatically once somebody buys it. So it really doesn't take much continued maintenance from me now. But it took a lot of work to get to that point. It was not overnight, like you said.
Yeah.
And then my 2 main courses are kind of the other passive income. But they are, one of them is evergreen and one of them I do open close launches. So, but both of them, the bulk of them are built now and they're made. And now it's mainly just the promotion that I have to work on, and how to market them and how to be creative with that and, different ways to reach different audiences and growing my email list to like focus on those specific topics. So that's kind of where a lot of my day-to-day work is now.
Yeah. So tell us like more about what the products that you have, the digital products that people can buy on Etsy, and then it automatically sends them the download. What do those products look like? You mentioned like a kit or a printable, but can you describe for people who are new to like selling that type of product, what do they look like?
Yeah, so in my shop, I sell printable planners. So they're like kind of like a collection of PDFs that are around a specific topic to help you like plan for something. So I have like a general like calendars and to-do list one. I have one for like wedding planning, one for teacher planning, meal planning, and like grocery shopping. So there's kind of like little kits for each topic in my shop personally, but a lot of other people on Etsy sell things, a lot of like design assets like illustrations or icons or pre-made logos or like business stationery that's kind of pre-designed. Like branding that you can buy and customize yourself. Like they'll send you the design files. Stock photography is a really big one on Etsy too. A lot of photographers do that kind of as another stream of income. Those are kind of the really popular ones. Stationery, printable stationery is big on there too, like wedding invitations, birthday parties, stuff like that.
I bought stuff for my wedding from Etsy, like little custom signs that were framed in certain places, and you can either just buy the template or you can like customize it for like $5 extra to have your name on it or something.
Yeah.
I love Etsy.
Yeah, I buy stuff for my daughter's birthday parties on there.
So why a marketplace like Etsy? Because obviously I kind of mentioned the thing of like the Amazon marketplace and how that works, but like what made you decide to put your stuff on Etsy instead of having it like why haven't you moved over to just being like everything is self-hosted in my own Squarespace site on your website, and why do you still have things on Etsy?
Yeah, I did for a while. I had both. So I started on Etsy, and then whenever Squarespace, kind of when they first came out, and I got a site, and I put everything that was in my shop also on my website, just duplicated all of it and sold it at the same prices and everything. And even after like my email list grew and like I just became a little bit more established in my business and everything was kind of growing, the Etsy shop was still bringing in far more income than the sales on my website. So, and it started to get kind of confusing, I feel like, because that Etsy audience is a little bit different than people who would buy my courses. Not always, but they're kind of more like stay-at-home moms, and like, you know, they're buying these things to help organize their family or their wedding or their classroom if they're a teacher, and they're, you know, they kind of buy it because they need it and then they're done, and not really like business oriented. So I think it was kind of confusing to have that on my website along with all this business stuff. So I took it off of my website just a few months ago, actually, and just kept it on Etsy. So I think it's done a lot better that way. It's less confusing to explain that to people. They're like, wait, this is here and it's here. Is it the same thing? I don't know.
Oh,
so,
right.
Yeah, and Etsy was getting far more traffic because of that built-in audience that they have. So I just left it there.
I think that's a good point about the different audiences, like realizing that your printable audience wasn't necessarily the same as your course audience. Because I think we get questions.
Yeah.
People deal with that general dilemma a lot in their business where they feel like maybe they have two different audiences. So I think that was really wise that you kind of came up with that solution. And have you seen it, taking it off of your site, have you seen like sales be affected at all for the Etsy shop or the products, or you feel like it's been the same?
I feel like it's been about the same. I kind of around the time I took it off, I started experimenting with advertising on Etsy, like paid advertising. So that has, I feel like that maybe has helped get a little bit more traffic to the Etsy shop. But I mean, I ran my shop for years before that without advertising, so you totally don't have to do that. I just wanted to experiment with it because I never had.
Yeah.
But I feel, I mean, I don't know that there's a huge difference in the audience. I mean, hopefully it's more clear to them now what I do, but I felt better, just less like pressure on me to try to like promote both sides of it and like explain both sides to people, or like feeling bad because I was emailing them about, you know, this other thing, this other part of the business that they maybe didn't sign up for. So I think I just felt better in my own promotion of like, I know people on this list are interested in this topic, and they're not confused if I'm like, oh, hey, I also sell this garden kit if you have a garden.
Yeah.
Like, where did that come from? So
I mean, it's definitely interesting,
helpful.
like the types. I know when I like, you know, when I found out about you and you were in my course and I was looking at the different things that you sold, I was like, this is so cool that you don't just sell, like you said, it's for everything for your life. It's like how to do meal planning and how to go, you know, grocery shopping kits. And yeah, it's not just business stuff. And I really love that you have all of that, like to appeal to so many different people. And I do feel like a marketplace like Etsy is such a good place to have all that. And it definitely makes sense to keep it on there. I feel like so many people almost feel like they're working up to taking their stuff off of a marketplace and putting it on their own branded website and things like that. And I think you've definitely kind of, but through your experience, figured out that that's such like a leveraged place to have it, is where there's already traffic finding it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people are like, get off of Etsy because it's not your space. And like,
right.
I get that. And I totally agree with like building your brand outside of Etsy and not putting all your eggs in that basket. But like, I also think like, why not? They have this huge audience and such a streamlined system, and they've updated the design recently so it looks better than it used to. And there are more ways to like customize it to look like your brand. So why can't we use it? While also building our brand in other ways on other platforms and in our own spaces.
Definitely. So what would you say is like the least sort of, what's the most time consuming part of any of that system? Is it the promotion? Is it like keeping the shop updated? Do you create? One of the things I've found about passive income is that like the people like you and I who are like capable of creating it and like have the motivation and drive to actually like create passive income are the people who aren't the type of personality to just sit there and be like, great, I'm done. Like I'll just live on this money now. And it's like, obviously you are, I know for me, it's like, oh, I created passive income over here. Okay, let's do that in a whole other niche. Okay, let's do that over here. Okay, let's do it again. Like, it's like, you don't really slow down. So do you feel like you just keep adding more and more to growing your income streams, or, you know, where do you sort of spend the majority of your time?
Yeah. For my Etsy shop, I don't do a ton of stuff with it anymore. I mean, I kind of created a lot of the kits that I wanted to create, and I kind of don't have a ton of ideas left for new stuff I want to add.
Well, you have a lot on there, so.
Yeah, and I don't want it to be like too overwhelming. So, and I'm happy with like how it's going now. I have hired an assistant to help me make mini versions of all the kits. So just like rather than a full letter size, doing a half size version, which I had started to do a while ago and then got distracted and never picked it up again. So she's helping me go through and add that. So that's kind of adding new product on a regular basis. But with my courses and stuff, I kind of made the two that I made, and I didn't really want to make another big one. But yeah, it wasn't like, okay, they're done now, I can like stop working. Like,
yeah,
it's in my blood to like keep working. So that's kind of why I've added these mini classes to help like feed into those and just talk about some more specific topics. And if people like aren't ready to invest in a full-on course, they can, you know, kind of get a taste of my teaching style and what types of products I put out, you know, at this lower risk price point.
Yeah, I think it's an awesome idea. We're thinking about doing some mini classes that maybe will be coming out soon to when this is going to air. But that was something we came up with sort of at the end of last year, that we're like, people ask for these like, oh, can you just teach me this little tiny thing? And it's like, oh yeah, we should be able, you know, and it's like, you don't want to make a whole other course about it, but you do kind of want to give people some tiny little, like, also people like quick wins. So to me, it's like, there's something to be said for the value of something that people can say, oh, I went through this course in 1 hour and like, it was super great. It was 1 hour and it was easy and now I'm done.
Yeah. And I learned the thing I was trying to figure out on YouTube, and now I know.
Yes, exactly. Instead of this like 8-week commitment, which is like great. I mean, those are awesome courses too, but I do think there's something to be said for the like getting people like the quick result with a little investment.
Yeah. And they don't take as much time to create on your end. So they, come out faster. I had more fun making them. I don't know. I loved making like my full courses too, but it was like on such a small scale. It was kind of, I don't know. I felt like I had a little more freedom to like be creative or like be a little silly. I don't know.
I love that.
Yeah, because you don't feel like, oh my gosh, I never want to redo this again. So like I can't mess this up. It has to be perfect because I'm never recording 100 videos ever again.
Right, totally.
Just kidding, guys. It's super fun to sit down and record course videos.
I know what you mean though. Like I feel like there's just less pressure in a mini class style because less content that you're recording. It's so specific. I think a lot of times as you're creating a big course, especially for the first time, this is a new topic you're teaching, you're kind of, while you're recording, almost refining what the course is at the same time in a way. So I feel like there's a lot of, like thoughts that like affect your course when you're creating a larger program. But when you're doing these mini classes, and the direction and the point and the result is so clear, I feel like the whole process probably feels a lot easier.
Yeah, it was really fun to do.
That's encouraging.
That's awesome.
Makes me feel better about us potentially doing mini classes too.
I had put it off for a long time. I was like, I don't know what this is going to look like.
Yeah.
But then when I did it, I was like, oh, that was fun.
Did you feel like your audience was like, this is what we wanted? Like, did your audience respond to it well?
Yeah, because that too, I was like, I have no idea if this is going to be like what. I mean, I knew it was a topic that people wanted. The one I've put out is about designing ebooks. And so I knew people like wanted to learn about that because I had a blog post about it. That is one of my highest traffic posts.
Everybody listen, that is a good strategy for finding your paid course topics is looking into your analytics.
Yeah, that's like always the first place I go. And so I knew it was a topic they wanted, but I was like, I've never put out anything, I don't know, at this price point and like a smaller thing like this. I don't know what people, just didn't know how it was going to go, but it went really, really well. I was surprised. So I feel like at that lower price point, it's an easier decision for people, of course, than like a couple $100 for a full-on course.
Definitely. That's awesome. So are there any like downsides or myths or any negative things about, maybe like misconceptions about passive income that you want everyone who's listening right now to know about?
Yeah, I think the whole
the whole thing,
sipping drinks on a beach while money just rakes in. I mean, maybe that happens for some people. I don't think that happens for most people.
I don't know anyone that happens for.
Their Instagram photos are probably fake. But I think knowing that it's going to take work and it's not going to be overnight, and there's a lot of work that needs to be put in before you create the course and then, or whatever the product is, and then creating it takes time, and then marketing it and continuing to promote it in creative ways after, that takes a bulk of your time. So it's passive, but it's not, completely,
it's almost like leveraged income more than passive income.
Yeah.
I think you've said that before, Mariah, and I've always leveraged income feels like, at least with courses specifically. I could see your Etsy shop feels like you created it and you did that work up front, and now you don't really have, since you're using Etsy as a marketplace, your marketing time is much lower than it would be if it was on your own shop. So I feel like that's the best example of passive, but I feel like courses are a little bit more of leveraged income as opposed to passive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's something I've been thinking about a lot lately as we've been recording and writing things for this passive income theme of this month is it's pretty straightforward to create a passive income product, right? Something that's a printable or a downloadable or some sort of PDF or ebook or something that's a digital product that doesn't require, not an online course that requires like has coaching calls or a group or something like that, because I don't consider that passive income at all, as we all know. But it's like that part's pretty straightforward. Creating the delivery that's passive is pretty straightforward. Like, oh, Etsy automatically delivers the download when someone purchases. Or if you're like us and you use Samcart, it's like Samcart automatically sends them the download when they buy it. But to me, it's like the part that no one can crack, and the part that's really hard is the passive traffic, and is the leads or people finding you, or the promotion usually ends up being the part that is not passive, even if the other pieces are. So if you can find a system like Etsy or like Pinterest or some sort of like evergreen traffic generation, or just sending you customers, that is like that's usually the piece that people really struggle with. Yeah.
But then too, I think it's important to like not lose the human aspect of your business, and like, I mean, like I'm a workaholic. And so if I, figured out all these systems where I didn't have to touch my business, like I would be bored out of my mind.
Same.
And so, yeah, I know you guys are the same way. So, so I like that part of like still trying to figure out.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah. It would, I would be bored.
Well, and I think that's probably true of most people who achieve what any of us have achieved with any level of leveraged income, is that it takes such an enormous amount of like wherewithal and persistence and everything to get to that point, that it's just not, we're just not the type of people who can just, let it sit there and like reap the rewards without doing any more work. So what advice would you have for someone who's just starting out and is wanting to create their first like little passive income stream, maybe something really small to get started? What would be your number one piece of advice for that person?
That's hard to like have just one thing to do.
It's hard to wrap it up and be like, here we go. Passive income in one sentence.
Yeah. I think, you have to have an audience to sell it to. So whether that's building your email list or getting on a place like Etsy or Amazon or wherever, a creative market, that's a big place too. Wherever you want to end up, I think it's still important to like have your email list and have your own, Etsy anyway, they don't let you have the customer's email address, which is a big turnoff to a lot of people. And that sucks, of course, but there's ways around it. So, so I think making sure you have an audience to sell the thing to is super, super important. Otherwise it's not going to sell and it'll all be in vain.
Yeah. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into some of these wrap-up questions. This has been super helpful. I feel like Megan and I are going to hop off and then be like, okay, let's set up a Femtrepreneur Etsy shop. I know. So we can sell some of our like printables and things.
I wanted to create like a secret shop that's like, I don't ever promote on my stuff, and I don't like, it's not my brand or anything, just to like try it from scratch and just
I do things
see what
like
happens.
that.
I know.
I love experiments
like
starting
that. From scratch and like a case study.
Secret case
and it's not
study,
like you're promoting it with your existing stuff, so you're just really seeing. I have a lot of friends who do that too, who are like on the side. They're like, it doesn't have my name on it. It doesn't, like, you would never know it, but like it's me testing always, and that's what I think is important, because we're always should be testing out like our own strategies in other niches for sure. And that would be such a cool experiment. You could always do like publish your results like a year later, and it would be such a cool like surprise.
Yeah, because like we all started with nothing, but it was also kind of a different world, I feel like. At least on Etsy, there's way more people doing digital products now than there were even a couple years ago. So I know it's harder to stand out. Same goes for just general online business, I think.
Totally. Okay, so what is the number one thing that you're struggling with right now? It could be personal, it could be business related, but like what's something that you're struggling with sort of behind the scenes?
Yeah. I think like figuring out how to best serve people who are already in my courses, and students that I already have, and like, how can I keep them motivated to finish the work and like take what they've learned and actually do something with it after they finish the course, and keep going with it. Because we can always create new things all the time, but like, I don't want to just like have someone buy the course and then I'm like, cool, thanks, see ya, I'm going to go like make this other thing now. Like, I want to help them succeed, and how can I do that, I don't know, in a creative way without me being there next to them, you know, every day. How can I do that from far away?
It's such a good question. I think that's something that it's like, once you've kind of cracked the code on like, okay, you've gotten students and you've made sales, and that was like your main focus, was like, does this thing even work? Like, is anyone going to buy this? And then they do. And then I don't think people, you know, not a lot of people realize how much of your thoughts then turn to like, how can I help everyone better? Like, how can I be more available to everyone? Or like, you know, while still trying to maintain like some semblance of sanity and a life. Because like for us, I mean, we have thousands and thousands of students, and it's just like, it's hard to have any boundaries at all, to be honest. Something I'm struggling with. Boundaries, but it's like nothing, you want more. It's like you said, it's like all day, every day, I just think about that, is like, how can I help so-and-so? I know that she's in the middle of her launch. Is there anything I can do to help her? Like, just like think about all my students and like where they're at in the process. But I think that's a really good one. And I think there's probably a lot of people that feel that way. And I think if you guys haven't launched your courses yet, that will sort of become the next challenge. It's not like, oh, I had a successful launch, everything's great. Then you turn your focus to like, how can I make this learning experience better? Like, what are the new, almost like we think about like, what are like the new things coming out in terms of like online learning experiences? How can I make this course, something we always think about is like, how can like the learning mechanism like change? Like, whether it's the delivery of the course can change so that people have better completion rates, or our students have an easier time making it through. Like, after so many years of doing this, we've kind of figured out the sticking points, like where in the course people can get stuck, or it feels like, oh, I'm like going up this hill, and if I could just get over it, then it would be like smooth sailing after that. But so many people get stuck on these little pieces, and it's like, how can we create it so that that's smoother, it's easier to get through that rough patch that everyone seems to get hung up on, or something like that.
Yeah, we always say that launching your course is like just the beginning. Like, it's like
step one.
Like, closing your launch does not mean you're done. It's like, at least if you have like a course with a community or any kind of support, like you said, you want your students to be successful. And I think that's an indicator of a good course creator. You know, I think that we've all come across people maybe who aren't as ethical in their course creation, and they're just creating it and don't care about the results their students get. And I think that's why we see people who are prospective students become wary, because they've encountered that themselves. So I think it's always good if you're asking yourself those questions and feeling the weight of like wanting your student success rate to increase, that you're on the right track and you're doing this whole thing the right way.
Yeah. And that's a big investment for people, you know, to pay several $100s for something that isn't always real tangible, you know? And so, I'm a people pleaser, and so I don't ever want to take $400 from you and then fall off the face of the earth. Like,
I know.
That would eat me alive. So
yeah, same. I also think it's like people are paying money so that they can essentially do a bunch of work, which is like kind of, it's hard. It's like to me, I'm almost like, you know, I know it's a big investment, but I'm like, the spending of the money is the easiest part of this process. Like when you join my course, you're going to be like, oh, remember how easy it was to buy this? Now I actually have to do all this work. Because I'm like the kind of tough love teacher, but I definitely think it's like, you know, it's an interesting thing. People want to they're paying for access so that they can do the hard work, which I think is really awesome. Okay, so sorry, now I'm just rambling. So my next question is, what do you think is going to be sort of the next trend in whether it's online courses or online business or sort of the space that we're in? How do you think things are going to change in the coming years? Do you have any predictions for us about the future?
Kind of like, I mean, like we were just saying, maybe there could be new ways to help students stay motivated and stay on track. Maybe along with that, I've just noticed a lot more like community aspects to courses, and whether it's Facebook groups or Slack groups or whatever. I was kind of weary to start either of those just because of the time commitment.
Yeah.
But I know they can be helpful. I did a private Instagram group for my courses.
Cool.
So just a private account, and kind of keep up with people weekly on there. So it felt like still a way to like sneak in the community, but not a huge commitment and not a huge, group to manage.
That's really
but
interesting.
maybe there'll be new methods of how to incorporate community into that type of learning.
I love that.
I agree. Yeah, I think community is going to just become more and more of an important part of what you are creating. You're no longer just selling like a download or a product or content. It's like you are the facilitator and the leader of a community, and it's your job to like curate it and make it like this really supportive learning environment. And that's going to
like an
become like part of
accountability
your job.
thing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I've never heard of the Instagram private
I
Instagram
had never really
group.
seen anybody do it, so I was like, I don't know if this will work, but I just tried it, and
That's cool.
some people are active in there, some people aren't. So, but it kind of
Interesting.
keeps me in touch with them for more like quick stuff. Like Etsy recently redesigned part of their back end, and so that was like a quick place where I can be like, hey, this stuff has changed. Here's where you can read more about what's different. Rather than feeling like I needed to send out this big formal email or something.
Yes. That's really cool. We should look into that.
Yeah.
All right. So tell us what other projects you're working on this year, any new things that are coming out, anything you're excited about, and where our audience can find you online.
Yeah. So like I said, I'm working on these new mini classes a lot this year. So I plan to have 3 more come out by the end of the year. So I don't know exactly when all of them will happen, but sometime. But yeah, you can keep up with everything at papernotes.com. And I think when this airs will be when I have an Etsy course called Etsy on Autopilot that's evergreen right now, but doing a little quick few days promotion to help kind of boost it a little bit and give some incentive to sign up. So if Fem Show listeners want a free lesson, they can have lesson 1 for free at papernotes.com/thefemshow.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Thank
you
you
so
so
much
much.
for doing that. Yeah, thank you so much. I think everyone who's listening, make sure you go sign up. Why not? Look at lesson 1 of Etsy on Autopilot. See if it's something you're interested in doing. If you're already creating digital products or selling digital products, I can't think of a reason why not to put it on Etsy and see if it gets some traction there and see if you can create an audience there as well.
Yeah, and lesson 1 is kind of about like an intro to digital products and an intro to Etsy, so you can kind of see if that would be a good place to put your stuff or not.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kelsey. This was so interesting. I feel like you're doing a lot of things differently than a lot of other people that we've interviewed. I feel like you have this really unique approach to your business, and it was so interesting to hear about your different income streams and how you run your business. So thank you so much for sharing all of that with us.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on. This was really fun.
Go to thefemshow.com/45 to the show notes to this episode and to find the links to all the resources we mentioned, including how you can get lesson 1 of Kelsey's course, Etsy on Autopilot. And if you want to discuss this episode with us and our amazing community of online entrepreneurs, make sure to join our free Facebook group at thefemshow.com/community.
And if you like this episode, subscribe to the Femtrepreneur Show on iTunes and leave us a rating and a review because we love you when you do that. If you're watching this on YouTube, then please leave a comment below with your thoughts so we can chat with you in the comments. And remember to hit the like button and subscribe. Do you ever hear people on YouTube saying smash the like button?
No. We should.
It's like a thing. You guys should smash the like button. And don't forget to go to thefemshow.com and submit your questions for us if you want us to give you a shout out on the show. We are happy to answer your questions and do that. And we will see you guys next week.